Hi guys, Professor Yerby here with you again. In this longer than normal tutorial, I'm going to go over some virtualization technologies. So first we want to begin by defining what is virtualization. So it's emulation of a computer or operating system, environment, or application on a physical system. And there's two different types of hypervisors or virtual machines. There's the type 1 and type 2. There's another video in my YouTube channel to give you more information on the type 1 versus type 2. What we call our virtual instances of computers, those emulated computers or operating systems, are VMs, virtual machines, and that can be any kind of workstation, client, server, and we can tell it to use different types of CPUs that are in the device, different storage drives. We can use external drives or the normal drive that we would use for our built-in computer. And we can have more than one network card, or we can bridge, NAT, or emulate our network card. Yeah, I'm going to do this because I'm going to be going back and forth. I've got a good bit of resources running right now. Okay. VM appears to the user no different than physical computer almost all the time. There are a few little things here and there, but it runs the same software. The VM, the virtual machine, isn't aware that it's virtual. It thinks he thinks he's a real boy. It's kind of like Pinocchio. The host thinks it's a physical or the host in a type 2 hypervisor, which is what we'll be looking at. It's a physical computer. So right now I'm recording this video on my laptop, and so it's a physical machine. It's a HP Pavilion DV7 real physical computer. And let's see if I can pull up that, if I can remember where that key is. And yeah, let's do this. So this is a actual computer. So this is my processor, and it's got, this processor is capable of doing some advanced virtualization. It's got VTX built into the chip. I've got an okay amount of RAM, 64-bit operating system here. Okay. And then my guests are the virtual machines. So let's take a quick look at that, and I'll show you what I mean. So right here, we saw a second ago that I'm running Windows 7 Enterprise, okay? But what if I wanted to test something on a different type of software? If I wanted to try it, I needed a 32-bit operating system. So this is Vmware Workstation 10. And so here we have a list of the different virtual machines that I've created. So I have a Windows 7 machine here, 64-bit, and I installed some things, got it to a baseline, and I wanted to install some different things to do some testing. So I was able to take this machine and go in and clone it. So I just went to, let's see, VM manage, and I went here and cloned it. So what that did is it created a clone. It created an identical copy of that machine. So once I did the clone, I created this clone of Windows 7. And then I also needed a 32-bit because only some specific applications would only run. See this little 2 yellow lines? That means the machine is paused. All these other ones are off. So I've got some Linux distributions. Here, this is a live CD, so there's nothing actually installed. Here's some forensic software distribution called Kane. And one of the neater things that I think I was able to do with a little bit of advanced trickery is I was able to turn my HP computer into a Mac. So I can run whatever I need to do on Mac now. So I can browse, I can use the Finder. Let's see, what kinds of things do I have in here? But so it looks like I'm on a Mac right now. All right, I'm trying to think something useful I'd want to do on the Mac. I kind of did it, just kind of proof of concept. Every now and then I'll use the FaceTime, and I was trying to use iMovie at some point. I'm not sure if I got that worked out or not, but it's kind of neat that I can have my Mac here on my HP computer, and then I can do some interaction if I wanted to interact with some other machines here. And I'm trying to think something I'd want to show you here. That's my biggest problem with the Apple, is I just don't have a whole lot of use for it. So here I can just open up a I don't know, some journal article I was reading. Anyways, but kind of neat that I can run an Apple on my HP. Let me get back, because this tutorial is going to be long anyways. So I can go in here and I can power it off. This way I can reset it if something got infected. For me, it's better to shut the virtual machines down like you would shut down a physical computer. So I just do it that way. Let's get back to the PowerPoint. The hypervisor, that's our VMware. There's also Virtual PC, and the other popular choice is VirtualBox, and it's free. VMware has some free versions and some paid versions. The version I was just showing you is a paid version. But here's how it works. So on my computer, so imagine this blue part as my laptop. So this is my laptop, right? This blue part, the physical machine, or this is maybe my desktop. All those different operating systems I showed you, the Windows 7, the clone of Windows 7, all of those are virtual machines guest. Those are guest. The Windows 7 Enterprise that I showed you on the physical computer, this is my host operating system, and then all of these instances are guest, and they all communicate through the network card. So right now I'm using the wireless network card of my laptop, and there's a couple different ways that they can communicate with this physical network card. So the advantages of virtualization: efficient use of resources. It saves a great bit in cost, energy, space. So think if I'm able to run a huge data center on 7 or 8 very powerful computers versus running a huge room of servers that have to be upgraded, worked on, replaced, cooled, powered. So a big advantage there with the virtualization. Fault and threat isolation. So you have a smaller surface, you have a smaller pool of resources to manage. Simple backups and recoveries and replication. So I talked about the clone feature. There's also features called a snapshot, where I can kind of take a image of that machine at that time, and I can save multiple snapshots, and the virtualization software is smart enough to manage those snapshots, so I can go back and revert to any snapshot that I've taken at any point where I need to go back. The other really big nice thing with virtualization is the files. So let's go back to our VMware here. So the files, if I look at the settings, I can see this is where I set the amount of memory, the amount of processors. So you cannot exceed what you have on your host device. So we saw that I had 16 gigs of RAM on my device. So I wouldn't be able to go above the 16 gigs because I don't have more than that. Hard drive space, I need to have that. And this is the file format, these VMDKs. And let's see what else I want to show you here. Here we go. So the file is actually stored in this directory. Let me see if I can browse to this directory real quick. So the files, this is my virtual machine, all of these files. The file that I would need to start the file is our VMX file here. I could click on this if I didn't have it showing in my, or it's the VMDK, sorry. If I didn't have it showing in virtual VMware, I could click this file and it would pop up VMware and it say, hey, do you want to open this file? Did you move or copy this, or is this a shared VM? But what I can do is I can take this and I can put this on a network share, or I can share it to another server, and I can move this entire machine just by moving this folder here. So everything's contained within these. So this is my clone of Windows 7. This is my Mac. This is my Mint, and there's some of those other guest virtual machines I have stored in a different location. So really great for recovery, backup, that way. The disadvantages are compromised performance, and I take that with a little bit of, you're going to be running an extra layer. So especially if we're doing our type 2 hypervisor, which is what we're talking about today, where we have a host computer. So I'm running my Windows 7 Ultimate on this host device. So it takes, resources to just run this operating system. Then I'm running VMware. Then I'm running each of the guest VMs. So that can increase the complexity. And the point here, increased licensing cost. So I'm going to be running more machines, but actually that can be an increase or a decrease. So if I go back to the thing here where I was talking about cost and energy savings, so if I have 20 physical machines, I'm going to buy 20 licenses for Windows Server, right? If I have 20 virtualized machines, they have different licensing agreements for different vendors. So the virtual licensing is actually less expensive when you're looking at Microsoft Windows servers. So that increased licensing cost, again, that one's not quite a big disadvantage. Neither is the compromised performance, because there's little trade-offs there. So there's some single point of failure. So if I'm running all of these devices on one single host and I didn't do any of this simple backup, recovery, replication where I have this on other devices, if my host system goes down, all of my virtual computers are down. So everything goes down with the host if we're using a type 2 hypervisor. So that is a big disadvantage, single point of failure. So that can be mitigated by doing something like a clustering solution, where you take multiple computers, multiple servers together, you create a cluster, and then you virtualize that cluster.